So, guys, I want to talk about Will Osprey, and in my opinion, a lot of people are saying that he could honestly be like the John Cena of AEW because definitely he's being booked very well. He's being overpushed, or he feels like a very forced Roman Reigns. But the thing about Osprey is that he's very charismatic, and he gets himself over in a lot of big ways. He acts like a big deal in AEW, and that's very good with a lot of wrestlers because obviously when I look at AEW, there's different types of wrestlers. There's wrestlers who care. There's wrestlers that just care about collecting, a cut of their just a cut of their money, and then there are wrestlers that get hired and they do care, and there's people like who get hired and they don't really self advocate really. But when I think of Osprey, he's like Adam Copeland in a way that they both really care about what they're doing in AEW. They are very passionate. They are committed. Daniel Bryan falls in that category. So I think that I think just really the way Osprey really gives a shit about AEW really shows to me that he does deserve to be world champion at one point. But I was saying to myself that would it be better if Will Osprey turned heel? And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think the first thing is that honestly, a lot of people are not happy with Swerve Strickland being the AEW champion, like with how he's been booked. Like he really is the 9 o'clock champion. He has the matches at 9 o'clock. There are better ways to book him, like on Collision this week. Instead of having him on the show, really, they had a backstage promo, and Osprey main evented the show. Swerve, I don't believe, has main evented any AEW shows. He's not even opened it. And sometimes they'll put him around 9 o'clock because that's usually when the ratings dip. So people could be like, okay, well, look, you made him the first black champ, but the first black champ can't be drawing the audience. And then also the other thing with Swerve is that the number one storyline is the EVPs versus AEW, really. So he's kind of been getting a back seat, really. So if you make Osprey heel, what happens is that you make Swerve a mega babyface, and then if Swerve tries to beat Osprey again and get the title, a lot of people would like that dynamic of somebody who has been underrated and not given an opportunity, and in addition to that, he lost his title in a way that was very anticlimactic, really, just trying to, regain the throne, really. That could be a storyline. The other thing, too, is that you have the issue of the Don Callis family. That the Don Callis family is, if I'm correct, it's Osprey, Hobbs, Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher. It's either, Kyle Fletcher, Trent Beretta. And the problem is that you have a bunch of heels, and then then the most notable person is a babyface. And this horse shit needs to stop with AEW. You need to stop having factions where, maybe the most famous person in your faction is actually a babyface. Look at the Mogul Embassy. They did the right thing by getting rid of Swerve. But it makes no sense, really, because isn't Nana in charge of the faction? So now his faction has mutiny, and he's done nothing about it, really. Or said nothing about it, really. So you can't be having factions where you have a person in there that's a babyface and there's 3 or 4 other heels. So what you could do with what you could kind of do is that you can even do something where Osprey turns heel, and then you have Takeshita become the TV champion, and they become a superhero faction, and then the EVPs come down and say, like, okay, the Don Callis family and the EVPs are becoming one, so it's the EVP family, and that's the third, and so it just puts, it makes the faction make more sense. They're all heel and they all have agendas. The next thing that I would say is, they could benefit from super factions, and that's when more than one faction comes together. I was saying the EVPs and the Undisputed Kingdom should come together and become a super faction, but they blew it because MJF came back and he whipped Adam Cole, really. And I think that because Adam Cole's injured, they couldn't really do what they wanted to do, really. So I do feel that with the Don Callis family, that you can make them a bigger deal if they're with the EVPs and they're trying to take over AEW and they're taking it over together. Or they say something like, you take over Collision, or you guys take over ROH, really. Imagine all the ROH people on the roster having a final boss or an Elite Four, really, like the 4 or 5 people you need to beat, really. It would make the AEW ROH titles more relevant, really. So, they can benefit from a super faction. And then the other thing, too, is that, as I said, what would have happened if you have the EVPs control Dynamite? You have the Don Callis family control Collision. Don Callis is a very great heel. What would happen if he took all the ROH titles, and then it's like you have to face Takeshita for the ROH TV champion and the TNT TV champion. You have to face Powerhouse Hobbs for maybe the Pure title or another title. Or what would happen if you had them grab a woman, really? What if you had Queen Aminata or Nyla Rose or even or even Athena, and recruit her to be a heel and an international heel female? What would happen if you had Osprey, even like said, like, I want to be a duo champion. I want to be a badass champion and a duo champion. He becomes the ROH champion. Or what would happen if you had Trent Beretta versus Orange Cassidy for the ROH title? You have to give the ROH title at least a good feud because it's an important championship. But you can't kind of do something like have Osprey, have it just be passed around, really. So it would give the ROH title some meaning if you had the Don Callis family actually be a heel and have him be on top of it, which is Osprey. And then the other thing too is you can build up new people. As I said, you have Adam Copeland that's out. What would happen if Takeshita becomes the ROH champion? Becomes the AEW TNT champion. He's part of the Don Callis family. And what happens if you have what's his name again? What would happen if you had Daniel Garcia say, like, okay, you know what? I'm mad that you're holding the TNT championship. It belonged to Edge. He actually worked hard. He busted his ass. You screwed over a couple people to get into your spot. What would happen if you made Powerhouse Hobbs the ROH champion, and then you have Daniel Garcia wanting to prove himself to Edge? Because or what would happen if that was Mark Briscoe? What would happen if that was Dalton Castle, a seasoned veteran? What would happen if it was Shane Taylor, who was like, Hobbs is the bully, that family bullies people. Shane Taylor, got some muscle. What would happen if you have Anthony Ogogo versus Takeshita and Don Callis initiating feuds? What would happen if you had John Morrison and Dalton Castle become a tag team and you have the ROH tag team titles? And what happens is that you have to face Takeshita and Kyle, like Flesher, or you had to face Takeshita and Hobbs or Takeshita and Osprey, type of thing. What would happen if you have Wardlow and MJF versus Takeshita and Osprey? There's so many things that you can kind of do, really, because you got to have titles. You got to make them mean something. And as I said, I think another thing too is that it could welcome a woman, really. Like, what would happen if you had Nyla Rose in the Don Callis family? What would happen if you have Queen Aminata, or you have another woman that's a little lost in the roster that has a lot of potential? What would happen if you had Saraya in the Don Callis family? There's potential to include a woman in a heel faction. And if you make Osprey the head of it, that would make sense too. You have Saraya, like, they're both from the UK, really. Or you find another international female that really wants to prove themselves, you can do that. Or even if you had somebody like Nyla Rose, who should be in a bigger spot because she has a good voice. There's a lot that you can really do with it. And then the last thing, it would subvert expectations, because there's a lot of people who think that Osprey is going to be this mega baby face, like he's going to be like the John Cena, really. But the problem is that, again, if you have too many baby faces as champions, who they're going to feud with. If you don't have that many heels, really. If you have Osprey be both the champion of somebody that's nearly unbeatable because he has great matches and he has great endurance and great offense, and then you tie in a heel faction, really, you have a champion for a long time. And what would happen if he has the EVP's blessings to hold the AEW title? And then, whoever loses has to deal with the EVP. Whoever fights and deals with the EVPs in the Don Callis family, that can create a very insurmountable, odd type of situation, really. And what would happen if you had somebody like Darby actually be that person? Darby versus Osprey would make money. MJF versus Osprey would make money. As I said, MJF Swerve and Osprey would sell at Wembley Stadium. So I think maybe for a lot of benefits, we can say that possibly Osprey turning heel could be the best thing for AEW.